Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Dear Asian Community podcast. I'm here with Dr. Maria Swartz. Could you please give just a brief background about yourself and what field you're in?
Sure. My name is Maria Swartz, and I'm a tenure track assistant professor in the Division of Pediatric at MD Anderson. And I am a behavioral scientist by training in my PhD program, and I'm also a licensed registered dietitian as a professional degree.
So, what really inspired you to pursue medicine?
Well, I would say it's because of my family members' health status when they were in the hospital and they were going through treatment. We saw a lot of polypharmacy issues that came up, and that really sort of destroyed the way that they can eat and also tolerate some of the foods that were being served in a hospital and everything. So because of that experience, that's what really drove me to pursue clinical nutrition as my undergrad degree. And after that, and through my service as a dietitian in the community, um, I was, seeing a lot of patients that had survived cancer because I was serving mostly pediatric. Um,
Mhm.
Head Start kids. And so we're seeing a lot of problems in terms of their health status after they finished treatment and they were going through preschool. And so because of that issue, that's when I decided to go back to school and pursue my PhD degree to really develop interventions and also programs to help these kids once they finish treatment.
So, it was really something in your community, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, have you had this dream since a young age, or like when did you really start to pursue this?
In the medicine or
Yeah.
any kind of medical field, I would say I I have always loved science
Mhm.
when I was little. So, the encyclopedia or, the Smithsonian. Oh, at the time when I was in Taiwan, they didn't have the Smithsonian sort of collections, but we did have a lot of the encyclopedia type of collections on all the different scientific facts and stuff like that. So, or scientific discovery. And I just love reading those type of stories. I definitely know that I didn't want to be a doctor because I seen the lifestyle, but because I still wanted to be involved, so I started looking for potential career track and potential ways to be still involved in medicine. And ultimately, it was because of my family members' hospital stay that really drove me into the nutrition field.
I see. So, what do you think is like the most interesting thing about pursuing nutrition?
I would say for me, uh, it was very helpful and beneficial for myself, just because, like I said, I was not the healthiest in a bunch.
Mhm.
And then so as we were learning different properties of food and then how to combine food, and because of that learning, and I think it's because of that professional knowledge, I'm not scared
Mhm.
when we have like new diagnosis in the family or any kind of cancer treatment or any kind of disease related issue that crop up that needs sort of nutritional adjustment to still maintain health.
Mhm.
That I was just not scared of like how to look for things, right? And how to make adjustments and knowing that science is always changing and always a new experience or new knowledge new things that we can
Mhm.
always discover. So it's kind of just gives me that tool that I need to help make the change.
I see. Yeah. The thing about food and nutrition is definitely a very relevant topic, especially for myself. Like my medical journey has had a lot to do with like the nutrition or like specific foods that I eat. And I think it's very interesting that we have doctors or people like you who are helping to solve these community problems. Um, and I was wondering if you've ever had any challenges as you were becoming, like a medical professional, and were there any obstacles that you had to face?
Um, I would say not as much that I noticed, other than, for nutrition, it's not, it, I would say this is general in terms of nutrition profession, right? Because we are not reimbursed
Mhm.
in the medical field. So in the nutrition profession, unfortunately, the pay is not so great because of the fact that we are not reimbursed for our service other than few disease types. So, for example, the diabetes education for a dietitian, that is a reimbursable service. And then, like for the renal nutrition services, a consultation with dietitians, and also a review by a dietitian, though that is also reimbursable. So those two particular disease type, and then also dietitians that are practicing within those two disease types, they tend to get higher pay rather than the lower pay. But as far as the obstacles with what I have right now, it would definitely be participation from our patients, that a lot of times they don't like to participate. And then also, or, a lot of families are actually not understanding, especially the Asian families, I would say,
Mhm.
it's not understanding that there are other supportive care needs of kids when they're going through treatment, right? So they are really focusing on just getting through treatment. This is all we need to do. But the other supportive care side, where it's really trying to round about, sort of, I would say, it's more of trying to decrease the damage that is being done by the treatment, that is being provided as a part of the supportive care, like PT, OT, or even this mental health type of support. Those are the ones that are not as accepted um, by some of the participants.
Mhm. Okay, I see. So would you say that as nutritionists that your main job is to kind of oversee the people with their journey on nutrition, or what is like your main profession?
Yeah, so as a clinical dietitian, if you practice as a clinical dietitian, yes, the main job in the hospital is to definitely see how people are doing nutritionally. And what it typically would look like is that you get a list of patients who may have been NPO, meaning that they didn't have any food. They only have fluids for about 3 days. Some people have to remain that long because of certain procedures, or, they're preparing to undergo major surgery and stuff like that. Or they have some sort of bowel obstructions where it may sort of affect their ability to even eat and absorb food and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So in those cases, then you definitely, the dietitians are provided that list of people to definitely go see as a priority, because you don't want them to be that long, without any kind of food or without any kind of nutritional support. They can go downhill really quickly.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's
Right.
a very interesting work that you're doing. And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that some families or like some Asian families might not receive it as well. So could you talk a little bit more about that? Have you had any, background influencing your decisions or family's decisions?
So I would say it's more of the rehabilitation side of things. So nutrition is
Okay.
almost, nutrition is part of the supportive care.
Yeah.
So like there is the major care, which is oncology, or even the major disease management team, right? So you have nursing and doctors for your major, the primary care. And then the supportive cares are like the rehabilitation therapists, speech therapists, mental health care workers, dietitians. All of these are supportive care professionals that are surrounding the main care team, right?
Okay.
And then, so I would say the families that we have encountered having a lot of issues in terms of accepting the supportive care, not as much of nutrition, because, all parents want their kids to eat,
Yeah.
right? And then the nutrition, the nutrition part is mainly, it only comes um, in terms of discussions for like uh, feeding tube, right? So some of the kids, when they're going through treatment, they don't feel as well. So they don't eat as much. And then that major discussion of, do we need to insert the feeding tube for a child to make sure that they can have the proper nutrition as they're going through treatment? That's where a lot of discussion would happen, because it is a invasive procedure. And as far as other supportive care like rehabilitation and mental health, we see a lot of refusals from the Asian families. And I don't know, well, I don't know if I don't know why, but it's more of, they're wanting to just really focusing on one thing, like the primary care. They're not necessarily thinking about the whole picture.
Hmm. I was wondering if you had, any advice for younger kids who might be wanting to pursue nutrition or dietitianary professions.
Sure. I would say definitely look at your options, right? So in the nutrition field, there are so many different ways to go about it. What I have described is what I have mainly practiced as a clinical dietitian. Not as much right now, because right now I'm really focusing on nutrition in the research arena, right?
Hmm.
So but then as far as my practice before, I was mainly a clinical dietitian, so practicing within the hospital. But then there are also dietitians in the communities like what I did before, which was a Head Start nutrition coordinator. And then so I was a Head Start dietitian across different centers, like the childcare centers. So in that role, I was also doing food management, like food services, right? So as a
Hmm.
dietitian, you can choose the route of clinical nutrition, which is more operating on seeing patients in the hospital, or in the outpatient setting, or in private practice. That's like more of the nutrition counseling roles. And then you have the other role, which is the food service role. And a lot of the dietitians are being hired to be like the food service directors for long-term care units, or for like restaurants. They do have those quality care teams that goes out to make sure the hospitals are meeting certain criteria, right? So they do go through and check to make sure the long-term care facilities are actually protecting the residents and not causing harm. And then like the food service team, the quality check team goes out to make sure the food services are done correctly. So they do check on temperature, they do check on cleanliness of the kitchen, they check on like the care for the entire facility and stuff. So there are so many
Hmm.
different roles a dietitian can play.
Yeah, that's very cool. I didn't know that there was so many different options, and I think that's good to know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And if you really ask me from from I would say from my advice, I would say definitely uh, pursue the master's. So usually it's you finish your bachelor's and you have practicum for 2 years. And then within that 2 years of practicum, there's the combination program of a master's and practicum together. And then after that, then you sit for the exam.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we could have this time to talk. That is all the time that we have.
Okay, sounds good.